People often believe in things they were never given the choice to question. The idea of God is introduced early, before the age of critical thinking, before the brain even forms the capacity to doubt. When people grow up, they usually inherit the religious identity of their parents without inspecting it, not because they've studied all available alternatives, but because deviation is discouraged. Traditions passed off as truths get repeated so often they feel like reality. But feelings aren't facts. The belief in God has survived, not because it has strong evidence behind it, but because it's constantly reinforced by culture, authority, and fear. When we take a step back and look at the foundations of this belief, it becomes clear that it rests more on emotional comfort than rational demonstration. Every god that has ever been worshipped throughout history, thousands of them, was once considered the ultimate truth, but none of them stood the test of time. They faded out like outdated maps of the world. One of the most basic principles in science and logic is that the burden of proof lies with the person making the claim. If someone claims there's an invisible dragon in their garage, we don't have to prove them wrong. They have to prove it exists. Yet, when it comes to God, that standard is reversed. People are told they must believe unless they can somehow disprove the existence of something defined to be beyond detection. When we look at nature, we see complexity, randomness, and indifference. Hurricanes don't spare churches. Diseases don't skip believers. Animals are not governed by commandments. The universe behaves the same whether we pray or not. The laws of physics are consistent and brutal. They don't respond to faith. They don't reward morality. They don't punish evil. They operate regardless of human wishes. The argument that the universe is so finely tuned that it must have had a creator loses its ground when you consider the vast emptiness of space, the lifeless planets, and the billions of galaxies that seem utterly unconcerned with us. If the universe was designed with humans in mind, it's an incredibly inefficient design. Over 999% of it is uninhabitable. Most of it is hostile to life. And life itself is fragile, short, and constantly at risk from forces we can't control. That doesn't suggest intelligent planning. It suggests random chance filtered by natural selection. And if we examine the human body, the supposed pinnacle of divine creation, it's riddled with flaws. The human eye has a blind spot. Our spines are not well suited for upright walking, which is why so many people have back problems. Our throats share a passageway for both air and food, making choking a common risk. These aren't the marks of intelligent design. They are the leftovers of an evolutionary process, shaped by trial and error, not by perfection. Religious texts are often used as evidence for the existence of God, but texts aren't evidence of their own claims. A book claiming God exists has the same value as a book claiming unicorns live in the clouds, unless there's something independent to back it up. These books are also filled with contradictions, historical inaccuracies, and moral views that no one would defend today. If those texts were found in any other context, we wouldn't use them as authority. We'd call them myths, which is exactly what they are. Then there's the moral argument. Many people argue that without God, we'd have no basis for morality. But morality exists in secular societies too. In fact, countries with higher rates of atheism tend to have lower crime, better education, and stronger healthcare. People don't need fear of divine punishment to behave ethically. Empathy, cooperation, and social well-being are often better motivators than ancient laws carved in stone. Morality is not handed down. It evolves. It grows as societies learn what helps and what harms. The idea that God gives meaning to life is comforting. But comfort isn't a measure of truth. A child might feel safer believing there's a monster-fighting superhero under the bed. But that doesn't make it real. Meaning is not something external we have to be granted. It's something we create through relationships, curiosity, creativity, and contribution. Life is meaningful because we make it so, not because a deity dictates it. Natural disasters don't discriminate. Earthquakes swallow churches. Tsunamis drown the faithful. Starving children pray and die with the same regularity as those who never believed. If there is a God, it's either indifferent or powerless, and if it's indifferent or powerless, it's not the kind of being that deserves worship. People try to explain this by invoking mysterious plans, but a plan that requires so much suffering from innocent people isn't a moral plan. It's a justification after the fact. The existence of thousands of different religions across time and culture shows how adaptable the idea of God is. In one culture, a God demands blood sacrifice. In another, it preaches non-violence. In one, it's a jealous ruler. In another, it's a formless energy. If all these gods contradict each other, and yet all are equally believed, it tells us more about human psychology than about divine truth. People believe what they're taught, what they need, what gives them comfort. That doesn't make it true. The concept of God often resembles the people who invented it. Gods have preferences, enemies, commandments, emotions, and flaws. They reward loyalty, demand obedience, and punish dissent. They mirror kings, not creators of galaxies. If God was truly above human comprehension, then religious texts wouldn't contain such human concerns. Property laws, dietary rules, sexual taboos. These are not divine ideas. They're societal controls dressed up in sacred language. People often turn to God in times of crisis. In pain, the mind reaches for answers. In grief, the heart looks for comfort. But emotional need doesn't prove existence. A person in the desert may hallucinate water. That doesn't mean the oasis is real. The brain is good at making patterns even where there are none. It's better at soothing itself than it is at seeking truth. Some say God must exist because so many people believe. But truth isn't a popularity contest. Millions believed the earth was flat. That doesn't make it flat. The number of believers says more about social pressure and tradition than about reality. People are afraid of death, so they believe in heaven. They're afraid of meaninglessness, so they believe in plans. They're afraid of chaos, so they create order through myths. Science doesn't need faith. It needs evidence, and the evidence keeps pointing in one direction. We live in a universe governed by laws, not by will. Every supernatural claim tested under controlled conditions has failed. Prayer doesn't heal faster than chants. Blessings don't stop bullets. Holy water doesn't sterilize wounds. These aren't opinions. They're observable outcomes. And if God truly existed, hiding wouldn't be necessary. The need for faith implies absence, not presence. We don't have faith in gravity. We don't need faith to believe in electricity. We see their effects. Faith is only required when evidence is missing, and when something can't be detected, tested, or observed. Believing in it becomes a personal choice, not a conclusion drawn from reality. The idea of God may have served a function in the past. It filled the gaps when we didn't know how lightning worked or why plagues happened. But those gaps are shrinking. The more we understand the universe, the less room there is for gods. Not because we're closing our minds, but because we're opening our eyes. What remains once the gods are gone is not despair. It's responsibility. It means we are the ones who must make life better. Not by waiting for miracles, but by being the agents of change ourselves. It's easier to think someone else is in control, but it's more empowering to know that we are. The world doesn't need more faith. It needs more courage to face reality as it is. Without divine oversight, life becomes even more precious, not less. It becomes urgent, not meaningless. And in that urgency, we find a reason to care, to love, to protect, and to question. We don't need gods to do that. We only need to be human.